Welcome to our journey through history. If you enjoy stories of ancient civilizations, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos. Today we travel back in time to the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, known as the Cradle of Humanity. Here, a magnificent civilization once thrived, giving birth to the world's first writing, the first written laws, and epic tales that have endured through millennia. This is Mesopotamian civilization, from glory to decline. And now let us begin the story. In world history, there are four great ancient civilizations: China, Egypt, India, and Mesopotamia. Among them, Mesopotamia is often regarded as the oldest, standing on equal ground with Egypt. So what makes this civilization so fascinating? Let us find out. Overview of Mesopotamia. Unlike China or Rome, which began with small tribes that gradually absorbed their neighbors, Mesopotamia was a land of many different peoples. At times, one people rose to power, only to decline and be replaced by another. Yet despite these shifts, their cultures shared common traditions, beliefs, and myths. The Mesopotamian civilization was the collective culture that developed in the land between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. To the north lay arid desert, to the south vast marshlands. This unique geography led the ancients to call the land Burin, the Great Flood. Scholars often distinguish between Upper Mesopotamia in the north and Lower Mesopotamia in the south. Upper Mesopotamia stretched from the Anatolian mountains, called the Alps in ancient texts, down along the Tigris to Baghdad. Lower Mesopotamia extended from Baghdad to the Persian Gulf, including present-day Kuwait in parts of western Iran. Mesopotamia is remembered as one of the true cradles of civilization, a crossroads where layers of politics and culture succeeded each other over thousands of years. It began with the Sumerians, who built the world's first city-states such as Uruk, Ur, and Nippur. Then came the Akkadian Empire under Sargon the Great, the first empire in human history. After Akkad, the land entered the Old Babylonian period, marked by Hammurabi, the king who issued one of the earliest written law codes still preserved. Meanwhile, in the north, Assyria rose into a fearsome military power, with armies regarded as the most formidable of the ancient world. Later, after the fall of Assyria, the Chaldeans established the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Under Nebuchadnezzar II, it reached its golden age, renowned for monumental works such as the Ishtar Gate and the legendary Hanging Gardens. In the end, however, the entire region fell under the rule of the Persian Empire. In short, Mesopotamian civilization was not a single culture, but an umbrella that encompassed successive powers, from Sumer, Akkad, Old Babylon, and Assyria to Neo-Babylon, each leaving behind a brilliant legacy and shaping the course of human history. One striking fact is that Mesopotamia lacked rich metal resources. Agriculture became its main commodity of trade, making the climate central to the life of its people. In Mesopotamian mythology, many major gods embodied natural forces: wind, rain, and storms. The supreme god Enlil was once said to have destroyed humankind simply out of displeasure, a reminder of how capricious and dangerous the natural world was in Mesopotamia. Moreover, the land was flat, with few mountains or natural barriers, making it vulnerable to invasions by nomadic tribes. This is why the history of Mesopotamia is one of constant upheaval and change. Life in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia was a fertile land. Its people favored the cultivation of grapes, olives, barley, and a variety of fruits. The hot and humid climate, together with abundant food, created favorable conditions for life. Each year, from May to October, the rivers swelled, bringing rich silt that nourished the fields, yet also unleashing floods and droughts. Despite these hardships, many were drawn to the region, turning Mesopotamia into a land of diverse peoples and cultures. Mesopotamian society was divided into 6 main classes: At the top stood the king, followed by priests and scholars under royal patronage. Beneath them were merchants, artisans, and farmers. At the bottom were slaves, most often prisoners of war. During the early Sumerian and Akkadian periods, agriculture was the foundation of the economy. The people built complex irrigation systems to grow grain and fruit, while also raising livestock such as sheep, cattle, and donkeys. Poultry like ducks and geese were common, and fishing supplemented their diet. Families were typically patriarchal and polygamous, yet children of both genders could inherit property, not only the firstborn son. Over time, slavery became a significant part of society, though free farmers remained the majority. At first, women in Mesopotamia enjoyed many rights, but gradually, society became more patriarchal. Councils of elders, once including both men and women, gave way to monarchies centered on the king. Even so, women retained the right to own property and to divorce if they had just cause. In the Babylonian era, Mesopotamia's economy grew even stronger. Agriculture remained the backbone, but trade expanded to larger scales. Agricultural products were exchanged with foreign lands over sea and land routes, bringing in metals such as copper and iron. Handicrafts flourished as well. Architecture, palaces, tombs, jewelry, textiles, and shipbuilding all reached new heights. By contrast, in the Assyrian period, the economy was less prosperous due to harsher natural conditions. The Assyrians focused on animal husbandry, hunting, and extracting timber and stone. After expanding their empire, they used wealth from conquered lands to build temples and grand monuments. In Assyria, subjects of the empire, even foreigners, could attain high positions in government. Yet at its core, Assyrian society remained organized around families and clans tied to their farmlands and grazing grounds. Education and entertainment. In Mesopotamia, education was reserved for the children of the wealthy, officials, nobles, and temple administrators. Most children simply learned their family's trade. The son of a merchant was taught commerce. The son of a farmer learned to till the fields, while daughters usually stayed at home, cooking and managing the household. The people of Mesopotamia enjoyed a variety of games and sports, including boxing, wrestling, and board games. The most famous of these was the royal game of Ur, one of the oldest board games ever discovered in the world. Scientific achievements. Among their most remarkable achievements was astronomy. By the Babylonian period, Mesopotamians had already imagined the structure of the cosmos and identified 5 planets of the solar system: Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. They could calculate solar and lunar eclipses, and they created a lunar calendar. Later refinements led to the lunisolar calendar, which in turn gave rise to astrology and divination. In medicine, surgery was perhaps the most developed field, though still heavily influenced by religion. In mathematics, the Mesopotamians made groundbreaking advances. They were the first to use the sexagesimal system, base 60, to calculate circumference, approximate pi, and develop a positional value system. They mastered basic arithmetic and even devised methods for calculating right-angled triangles centuries before Pythagoras. Other notable achievements included techniques for distillation, candle making, glass production, metallurgy, and controlling the flow of rivers. Many of these legacies were later inherited and refined by the Greeks and the Persians. Art. Alongside Egypt, Mesopotamia was among the first civilizations to develop art in a comprehensive way. One of its most striking achievements was the Ishtar Gate of Babylon, adorned with deep blue glazed bricks, rising 15 meters high with foundations 14 meters deep. Even today, it remains one of the most impressive physical monuments of the ancient world. Mesopotamian art also thrived in the form of clay tablets. Though many works have been lost to time, some still survive, such as the relief of the lion-headed eagle, a piece combining the form of a lion and a human, dating back thousands of years. Sculpture often focused on male figures, especially kings, typically depicted with long beards and large eyes. Relief art was widespread as well, used to decorate stone stelae, votive offerings, prayers, and monuments of victory. Under the Assyrians, large-scale works of art flourished, vivid reliefs portraying battles and hunts, and colossal guardian statues that once guarded the gates of their cities. Urban planning and architecture. The Mesopotamians were also the first people in the world to design cities according to systematic plans. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the city of Uruk is described as a splendid, prosperous place filled with gardens, marketplaces, temples, and massive walls. Their building materials were primarily reeds, stone, wood, bricks, and mud. For great structures such as palaces, they often used precious stones and decorated bricks to serve religious and ceremonial purposes. A defining feature of Mesopotamian architecture was the ziggurat, towering step pyramids that resembled the pyramids of Egypt. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods resided atop the ziggurats, and only priests and the powerful were permitted to ascend. Beyond their role as temples, ziggurats stood as symbols of authority and as bridges between humankind and the divine. Language and writing. The earliest known language of Mesopotamia was Sumerian, followed later by Akkadian. Both were widely spoken across the region. During the dominance of Akkad, Akkadian became the common tongue, yet Sumerian continued to be used in administration, literature, and religion. The Sumerians invented cuneiform writing, inscribing wedge-shaped marks onto wet clay tablets with a triangular stylus. By the time of King Sargon, syllabic writing was in wide use, greatly increasing literacy across the land. Another milestone was the Code of Hammurabi, consisting of 282 laws. Considered one of the oldest written legal codes in the world, it was carved into a basalt stele over 2 meters tall and nearly 2 meters wide. On its surface is a depiction of the sun god handing the stone tablet of laws to King Hammurabi. Discovered in 1902, the stele is now preserved in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Mesopotamian mythology. The people of Mesopotamia believed the world was a flat disk surrounded by a vast ocean, and above all lay the heavens. They held that water encompassed the universe, and that creation itself was born from this primordial sea. Like many ancient traditions, Mesopotamian mythology existed in numerous versions and often contained contradictions, shaped by shifting religions over time. Yet across the 4 great cultures that once ruled Mesopotamia, certain themes endured. Among them, 3 creation myths stand out: Enuma Elish, Atrahasis, and the Eridu Genesis. Enuma Elish. The Enuma Elish is the Babylonian creation epic, recounting the birth of the cosmos and the order of the world. In the beginning, there were only 2 primordial beings, Apsu, the god of fresh water, and Tiamat, the goddess of the salt sea. Together, they brought forth the first generation of gods, Lamu and Lahamu, followed by Anshar and Kishar. From them came Anu, and from Anu was born Ea, Enki, a wise and powerful deity. As time passed, the younger gods grew noisy, provoking Apsu's anger. He planned to destroy them, but Ea uncovered his plot. Ea slew Apsu and built his own sanctuary upon his remains. With his wife Damkina, Ea fathered Marduk, the mightiest of all gods. The death of Apsu enraged Tiamat. She raised an army of terrifying monsters and entrusted the Tablet of Destinies to Kingu, her new consort and chosen commander. Facing this threat, Anshar and the elder gods gave authority to Marduk. Marduk agreed to fight on the condition that if he triumphed, he would be king of the gods. He fashioned a great net, weapons, and a colossal bow. In the battle, he shot an arrow that pierced Tiamat, then split her body in 2. One half became the sky, the other the earth. After his victory, Marduk seized the Tablet of Destinies from Kingu. From King's blood, Ea fashioned humankind, created to serve the gods. Finally, Marduk built the city of Babylon, declaring it the sacred center of the universe, the dwelling place of the gods. From that time on, he was exalted as king of all divinities. Atrahasis. The Atrahasis epic, composed during the Akkadian period, tells of the origins of humanity in the Great Flood. In the beginning, the younger gods, the Agigi, labored endlessly to sustain the world. Exhausted, they rebelled against the higher gods. In response, Enki, Ea, proposed the creation of humankind to take over the toil of the gods. Humans were formed from clay mixed with the blood of a sacrifice god. They multiplied quickly, but their clamor angered Enlil, the supreme deity. Enlil resolved to punish them, first with famine, then with plague. Yet each time humanity survived, aided secretly by Enki. At last, Enlil unleashed a great flood to wipe them out. But Enki, in defiance, warned a pious man named Atrahasis. He instructed him to build a great boat to save himself, his family, and living creatures of every kind. Atrahasis obeyed, and thus survived the deluge, preserving life on earth. After the flood, the gods reached a compromise. Humanity would endure, but now subject to disease, mortality, and limits on population, ensuring they would never again trouble the gods with their noise. The Eridu Genesis. The Eridu Genesis, also known as the Sumerian creation myth, is one of the oldest surviving texts of humanity. It recounts the origins of humankind and the story of a great flood. In this myth, the mother goddess Ninhursag is credited with giving birth to mankind, marking the beginning of humanity's journey from nomadic life toward the creation of civilization. The gods bestowed kingship upon humans, entrusting them with the rule of the earthly realm. But as people grew numerous and noisy, Enlil, the supreme god, became enraged. He resolved to drown all of humanity in a great deluge. Yet Enki, the god of wisdom and protector of mankind, secretly warned a priest named Ziusudra. Following Enki's counsel, Ziusudra built a great boat to save himself, his family, and every living creature. Ziusudra survived the flood, and humanity endured. This tale is regarded as one of the earliest accounts of the Great Flood, profoundly influencing later traditions. Most famously, the story of Noah in the Bible. Enlil's punishment also reflects the harsh reality of Mesopotamia itself, a land where unpredictable floods could threaten the very survival of its people. Beyond the great creation epics, the people of Mesopotamia preserved many other variations. The Sumerians, for example, believed that the sea goddess Namu gave birth to An, the sky god, and Kai, the earth goddess, thus bringing the world into being. Akkadian traditions speak of the pair Duri and Dari, symbols of eternal time, or describe Enki, Ea, and Ninki as the prime creators. Over time, these variants blended together, reflecting the diversity and complexity of Mesopotamian religion. Among hundreds of deities, the most powerful were the 7 gods who decree fate: Anu, Enlil, Enki, Ea, Ninhursag, Nana, Shamash, and Ishtar. Of these, Nana, the moon god, was the father of Ishtar and Shamash, and the patron deity of Ur and Haran. Yet ultimate authority rested with Enlil, the god of storms and the earth, revered as the ideal model of kingship. Enki, Ea, was worshipped as the god of wisdom, creativity, and magic, protector of humanity, and closely associated with the city of Eridu. In many myths, he appears as mankind's secret benefactor, especially in the stories of the great floods. His wife was Damkina, and in some versions, her name is linked with the goddess Ninhursag. Ishtar, Inanna, goddess of love, war, and divine power, was venerated from the Sumerians through to the Assyrians. She was associated with the planet Venus and tied to the myth of her marriage to Dumuzi, the shepherd god of fertility and rebirth. Each year, Dumuzi was banished to the underworld. When he returned, life on earth was renewed. This cycle explained the changing seasons and later inspired the Greek myth of Persephone. Her brother Shamash, the sun god, embodied justice and law, protecting travelers, merchants, and soldiers. He also sent prophetic dreams to humankind. Ereshkigal, Ishtar's sister, was queen of the underworld, Irkalla. In the myth, The Descent of Ishtar, Ereshkigal captured and hung Ishtar's body in the underworld, plunging the world above into chaos. Only when Enki created two beings to carry the water of life into the depths was Ishtar revived, restoring balance to the cosmos. Another central tale is that of Marduk and Tiamat. Marduk, the powerful son of Enki and Damkina, associated with the planet Jupiter, rose to become king of the gods. He faced Tiamat, the primordial goddess of the Salt Sea, who had birthed an army of monsters under the command of Kingu. In the climactic battle, Marduk split Tiamat's body in two, forming the heavens and the earth, while humankind was fashioned from king's blood to serve the gods. This story is one of the earliest examples of the Chaos Kampf motif. The battle between a divine hero and a monstrous embodiment of chaos, echoed later in Greek mythology with Zeus and Typhon, and even in the biblical tradition. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Among all Mesopotamian works of literature, none is more famous than the Epic of Gilgamesh, regarded as the oldest surviving heroic epic of humanity. The text first appeared in Sumerian around 2100 BCE and was later refined into its standard Akkadian version by about 1200 BCE. The story opens with a portrait of the flourishing city of Uruk, ruled by King Gilgamesh, who carried within him 2/3 divine blood. At first, he was seen as a tyrant and an immature ruler, consumed by revelry and meaningless pursuits. To curb him, the gods created Enkidu, a wild man who lived among the animals. Gilgamesh and Enkidu first clashed in fierce combat, but soon became inseparable friends. Together they set out on daring adventures, defeating Akka, king of Kish, according to a Sumerian version, slaying the bull of heaven, and killing Humbaba, the terrifying guardian of the cedar forest. Yet their arrogance angered the gods. Enkidu fell ill and died, leaving Gilgamesh stricken with grief. Shaken by the loss, he embarked on a desperate quest for immortality. In the end, he failed, returning instead to Uruk with the sobering realization of humanity's limits. The epic closes with the image of Uruk's mighty walls, unchanged, yet Gilgamesh himself transformed. No longer the reckless despot, he became a wise and just king. The Epic of Gilgamesh is not only an ancient tale, but also a timeless meditation on tyranny, mortality, and the journey toward maturity. Unlike many later epics, its hero is not a flawless champion, but a man, at once powerful and vulnerable, profoundly human. The Uruk period, 4000–3100 BCE. The Uruk period marked a decisive turning point in Mesopotamian history as agriculture and culture flourished. With agricultural surpluses, the population expanded into crafts and the arts, while developing systems of taxation and food management. From this foundation, the first proto-states emerged, and towns and cities began to take shape. The most remarkable of these was Uruk, considered the first true city in human history. Uruk developed an administrative system and workshops supported by its temples. In its early stage, the city was not ruled by a king, but governed by priests or councils of priests, reflecting the profound influence of religion on Mesopotamian society. Beneath the priests were officials, scribes, and record keepers who ensured the machinery of the state ran smoothly, while farmers and fishermen formed the lowest class. This was also the period when cuneiform writing first appeared, used initially for recording taxes and the distribution of grain. From around 3500 BCE, Uruk's influence spread outward, driving urbanization and the creation of colonies, transforming Uruk into the dominant power of the region. Yet after a time of turmoil, perhaps from civil war, nomadic incursions, or rebellions among its colonies, Uruk weakened, paving the way for new powers to rise. rise of the city-states. With Uruk's decline, the Sumerians established a network of independent city-states such as Umma, Eridu, Nippur, Uruk, Ur, and Lagash. Each city-state functioned as a small kingdom with its own government, centered on an urban core surrounded by villages that provided food. This political model closely resembled the city-states of ancient Greece many centuries later. Thanks to fertile land and prosperous agriculture, populations swelled, often bolstered by migrants. Yet this growth also created logistical pressures and sparked conflicts, both among city-states themselves and with outside forces. Gradually, society shifted from early democratic councils toward monarchy, marked by the rise of Luguls, kings. Though ruled by kings, religion remained central. Each city-state claimed a patron deity, Inanna for Uruk, Enlil for Nippur. The legendary king Gilgamesh of Uruk likely belongs to this era, later immortalized in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Historically, one of the earliest known rulers was Enshakushana of Uruk, who briefly united the Sumerian city-states. He was followed by Lugal-Zagisi of Umma, who expanded his conquests, unified Mesopotamia, and moved the capital back to Uruk. Sargon in the Akkadian Empire. According to legend, a priestess bore a child out of wedlock, placed him in a basket, and set him adrift on the Euphrates River. The infant was rescued and raised by a gardener of the king of Kish. As he grew, the boy became cupbearer to the king. Yet a dream of ill omen led the ruler to fear betrayal, and he sought to kill him. In the end, however, it was the boy himself who overthrew the king of Kish and became Sargon the Great, founder of the first empire in human history, the Akkadian Empire. The tale of Sargon's humble origins was likely a political message, crafted to persuade the people that he was a leader, chosen not by noble blood, but by talent and the will of the gods. From his base at Kish, Sargon launched conquests to the south, winning more than 30 victories and bringing many city-states under his control. He defeated Lugal-Zagisi of Umma, advanced to the Persian Gulf, and extended his authority across southern Mesopotamia. Returning north, he executed Lugal-Zagisi and formally established the Akkadian dynasty. Between 2334 and 2279 BCE, Sargon conquered Susa, the capital of Elam, and expanded his empire from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. This vast dominion stabilized trade, granting Mesopotamia access to prized resources such as copper, silver, ivory, precious stones, and timber from distant lands. From Sargon's reign onward, Mesopotamian kings often used exotic goods to display their power. Sargon installed Akkadian officials into key posts and legitimized his rule through religion, declaring that the gods themselves had entrusted the empire to him. He strengthened his dynasty further by placing relatives in important roles. For example, his daughter Enheduanna was made high priestess of the moon god Nana at Ur, and she is recognized today as the world's first known female author. Sargon reigned for 56 years before his death around 2279 BCE. He was succeeded by his sons Remush and Manishtushu, who spent much of their reign suppressing revolts. Under his grandson, Naram-Sin, Akkad reached its height, expanding its territories and claiming the title, King of the Four Quarters of the World. Yet after Naram-Sin's death, the Akkadian Empire gradually weakened, and by about 2154 BCE, it collapsed, bringing an end to the glory of history's first empire. The time of chaos and the rise of Babylon. After the fall of the Akkadian Empire around 2154 BCE, the Gutians descended from the Zagros Mountains into Mesopotamia, establishing a new dynasty, yet they never managed to control the entire region. By about 2100 BCE, a coalition of Sumerian city-states led by Uruk defeated the Gutians. Out of this victory rose Ur-Nammu, an official from Ur who founded the third dynasty of Ur, or Third. Unlike Akkad, Ur III focused on consolidation and administration, rather than relentless conquest. This period saw advances in law, commerce, irrigation, and population growth. Many cities became economic centers, including Babylon, though at the time it was not yet a major power. By 2004 BCE, Ur III collapsed, undone by drought, plague, and invasions from the Amorites, a Semitic nomadic people. Mesopotamia entered a new era of turmoil, fractured between local powers and Amorite newcomers. The Amorites gradually integrated into the land, founding new city-states, developing writing and language, and laying the groundwork for the Babylonian Empire. During this transitional period, the most powerful rivals were Esan and Larsa, which struggled constantly for dominance. Another notable figure was Shamshi-Adad III, a military leader who had lived in exile for many years. Returning, he conquered Assyria, declared himself king, established Shubat-Enlil as his capital, and placed his sons in charge of surrounding territories. Yet his empire was short-lived, weakened by Zagros tribes and internal revolts. In this context, city-states like Mari and Babylon allied against Eshnunna and Elam. From these struggles, Babylon began its rise, preparing for the Golden Age under Hammurabi. The rise of Babylon. Originally, Babylon was only a small village in Lower Mesopotamia, devoted to the agricultural god Marduk. After the Amorites entered the region, Babylon expanded rapidly, seizing wealthy cities such as Kish. Its main rival was Larsa, the city-state devoted to the sun god Utu, Shamash. In 1792 BCE, Hammurabi ascended the throne as the sixth king of Amorite Babylon. He quickly consolidated power, strengthened the economy, and transformed Babylon into a prosperous center. When the empire of Shamshi-Adad collapsed, Hammurabi seized the opportunity, forming an alliance against Elam. Even though Larsa refused to join, Hammurabi defeated Elam, then turned on Larsa, uniting Mesopotamia under his rule. Unlike earlier kings who styled themselves merely as representatives of the gods, Hammurabi declared himself the embodiment of the gods, affirming his supreme authority. His reign ushered in peace and prosperity and left behind a monumental legacy, most notably the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest surviving written law codes in history. Though his successors failed to preserve his achievements, Hammurabi remained remembered as an ideal ruler. From that time onward, Babylon stood as the economic and cultural heart of Mesopotamia, a role it would retain for centuries. The rise of Assyria. After Babylon weakened, the Assyrians in the north began to rise. At first, they were vassals of the Akkadian Empire, and later of Babylon, but gradually they built the city of Ashur, on the banks of the Tigris, as their center of power. Under King Elushuma, Syria 1975 BCE, Assyria began expanding its influence through raids across Mesopotamia, while also developing trade with neighboring regions. From this point onward, Assyria and Babylon became eternal rivals, much like Athens and Sparta in later Greek history. At times, Babylon held the upper hand, but when it declined, Assyria resurged. The Assyrians skillfully maintained peace with certain peoples to consolidate strength, though they often faced threats from Elam and the Zagros tribes. Overcoming these challenges, Assyria gradually recovered and laid the foundation for one of the greatest military empires of the ancient world. The collapse of the Bronze Age and Assyrian supremacy. In the 12th century BCE, when most civilizations around the Mediterranean collapsed, from Mycenae in Greece to the Hittites in Anatolia and many Canaanite city-states, Assyria endured, slowly regaining strength. At the dawn of the first millennium BCE, both Babylon and Assyria suffered invasions by nomadic tribes, but Assyria emerged stronger than ever. Under Ashur-Nasirpal II, 883 in BCE, Assyria waged brutal campaigns, razing enemy cities, destroying their god statues, and tormenting prisoners. The god Ashur, once a deity of agriculture, was transformed into a god of war, embodying the empire's expansionist spirit. Ashurnasirpal II also built a new capital at Kalhu, Nimrud, where in 879 BCE he held a legendary feast for 70,000 guests, showcasing the empire's immense wealth and power. By the 9th or 8th centuries BCE, Assyria had reached its height. Its army was considered the strongest in the world, pioneering the first standing army, complete with cavalry, war chariots, siege engines, and organized logistics. The empire's territory stretched as far as the Armenian highlands, dominating the Near East. After Ashurnasirpal II's death, Assyria entered a period of decline due to internal strife. But under Tiglath-Pileser III, 745-727 BCE, the empire was thoroughly reformed. The army was reorganized, the tribute system strengthened, and rebellious regions brought under control through resettlement policies. From this, Assyria entered its era of supremacy under rulers such as Sennacherib, Esarhaddon, and Ashurbanipal. The latter became renowned for the Library of Nineveh, one of the greatest collections of texts of the ancient world. Yet Assyria's brutality and harsh rule bred countless enemies. In 612 BCE, a coalition of Nabopolassar of Chaldea and the Medes stormed and sacked Nineveh, bringing an end to the mighty Assyrian Empire and paving the way for the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Neo-Babylon and its legacy. After the fall of Assyria, Nabopolassar, a Chaldean leader, led a revolt and founded the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 626 BCE. For the first time since Hammurabi, Babylon was restored as the center of power in Mesopotamia. Under Nebuchadnezzar I, 605-562 BCE, Neo-Babylon reached its golden age. He became renowned for monumental works such as the Ishtar Gate, the massive city walls, and the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. During this era, art, scholarship, and architecture flourished, making Babylon one of the cultural capitals of the ancient world. But the glory was short-lived. In 539 BCE, the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, bringing an end to the Neo-Babylonian Empire after less than a century. From then on, Mesopotamia passed through the hands of successive great empires: the Persians, the Greeks under Alexander the Great, the Romans, the Parthians, the Sasanians, and finally entered the medieval era as Islam spread across the region, shaping a new chapter in its long history. Mesopotamian civilization, born from the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates, gave humanity writing, law, astronomy, monumental architecture, and timeless epics. Though it has faded with the ages, its legacy endures, living on at the very heart of human civilization. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to join us in exploring more epic journeys through history. See you in the next video.